Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, members of council, staff. I see that we have quorum, and I call this regular meeting for the Town of Pelham Council for Monday, June 1st, 2015, to order. We will begin with the singing of the national anthem, and I would ask all who are able to rise, and I would ask Councillor Papp to lead us. Thank you.
O Canada, our home and native land, true patriot love, in all thy sons command. With glowing hearts we see thee rise, the true north strong and free. From far and wide, O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. God keep our land glorious and free. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee.
Thank you, Councillor Papp. Thank you all. We'll begin with the approval of the agenda. It's been moved by Councillor King, seconded by Councillor Ribbiak, that the agenda for the June 1st, 2015 regular meeting of council be adopted as circulated. Are there any changes to the agenda? Councillor Ribbiak.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I will be asking a question of the minutes in business arising from, a question regarding Fonthill Bandshell Concerts, Inc.
Okay. Thank you. And is there a seconder for adding that to the agenda? Councillor Papp? Sure, put it on the floor. Sorry, I saw your hand go up, so, okay.
Fine.
Going to call the question. All those in favor of that amendment? Thank you. Any opposed? Amendment carries. Any other changes to the agenda? There being none, I'm going to call the question on the amended agenda. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried as amended. Next, we move to disclosure of pecuniary interest and the general nature thereof. That is, any conflicts of interest. Do any members have any conflicts of interest that they need to note? I do have one, and it's regarding 1322, which is the Education Development Charge proposal. It's put forward by the Niagara Catholic District School Board. My wife is employed by the board, and so I'm declaring a conflict. And I would ask at that point if Councillor Durley could take that item and chair the meeting. Are there any other conflicts? Can that be so noted in the minutes? Thank you. Now we move to hearing of presentations, delegations, and our regional report. And we do have a presentation from the Wellington District SPCA, and we have with us Amanda Ellis, who's going to present and also introduce some of her colleagues. Thank you for joining us, Ms. Ellis.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Council, members of the public. I'm Amanda Ellis. I'm the Enforcement Manager at the Wellington District SPCA. Behind me are a few of the officers, Ryan Herman, John Hoadley, and Nathaniel McLaren. This evening, we thought we'd like to introduce just some of our news and initiatives that we're providing for the community of Pelham. Just to let you know, it's not always about our bylaw enforcement, and these are the new things that we've been doing. Or maybe not. Thank you. This one's okay. So some of the highlights that I'll be presenting tonight are our low-cost spay neuter clinic, our regional training center, our pet visits and education, our community outreach, our mobile unit, and a reptile safe house. This is our spay and neuter clinic. To date, they've only been open 1 year, and we've performed over 4,000 surgeries. It's a low-cost spay neuter clinic. We received one of the largest grants in Ontario from PetSmart Charities of Canada, and this is what we did with the grants that we received. This is located on East Main Street in Welland. This is just some pictures of our veterinarians. We actually have 7 veterinarians on staff. That was the first dog that they ever, I believe that was a spay, a little female beagle. And then right next door to the spay-neuter facility, we actually have our regional training center. So what we've done actually, we've all moved all of our clerical staff into this building, and our staff, the clerical offices at the 60 Provincial Street Shelter is now going back to animals. So we now actually have a dog meet and greet room, which used to be our old boardroom, and this building has allowed us to be able to do that. Our training center, we've actually already started training, and what that is we're doing training for across all of our municipalities, all of your bylaw enforcement officer. I do dog bite prevention training, as well as we had some training, as you'll see later. This is an example. This was our tactical communication course, and it is offered to all of the bylaw officers in the town of Pelham as well, and any other staff that are willing. We send out the emails, and whoever wants to attend can attend. This is defensive tactics. So as investigators, we are mandated every year to take specific training through the Ontario SPCA. So what we've done is we've opened it up, because it's not just investigators that get into situations like this. It's also front counter staff, people that are, anyone that's dealing with the public can get into a situation like this, and it's defensive, so it's to get them out of the situation that they're in. This is another example. This is actually a bylaw enforcement officer that's with the instructor here. This is also something that we've done, is we now will hold conferences at our training facility. So instead of us going away, we will invite the people to our conferences. This was the Ontario Wildlife Education Conference. That's John Greer in the first uniform there. He's the executive director. He's sick tonight, so he couldn't attend with me. Myself, and there's an Ontario SPCA inspector beside me, sorry. Pet visits and education. So we just created the pet team, which I am part of. So this is me and my dog Striker. This is Kelly Clements and her dog Boom. Both these dogs actually are shelter dogs. Striker was brought in November. His right front leg, both bones were broken. He now has a plate from his elbow to his wrist, as well as a pin. And actually, he's turned out to have a great personality. I'm using it in pet visits and training, as you'll see later. Boom was a stray. He was picked up in Port Colborne, and the owners just never came to claim him. So with the pet team, this is what we do. We go out to schools. We're doing dog bite prevention, and we're also doing any other training. We will gear it into what the school's needs are. So we use, as you can see, Striker is a German Shepherd, and we figured Striker would help break the stereotype that all German Shepherds are aggressive, because some people feel that. They see a large dog, and he is quite large. He's very tall. So this is Striker at one of our schools. And this is me with him, and what we're doing here, the young girls had put on a little presentation, and then I went into training in the dog bite prevention to teach the children how not to get bit by dogs, stray dogs, if they're walking in the street or playing. Our community outreach and education and our community vehicles and school visits, we actually have a off-site adoption center, which is the Seaway Mall, and you'll see that. This here is just another example of when we go out into our community. These folks raise money, so now we actually have a personal visit. We attend and we receive the donations. They raised a few dollars, and as well as some food for the animals at the shelter. So we personalize it now by going out. This is our cat adoption center at the Seaway Mall, and we've opened it now for 3 years, and I believe we're approximately about 4,500 cats that we've adopted through that center. What that means is those 4,500 cats are not overburdening our shelter. Mm-hmm. So the cats are adopted. It's a very successful program. It's all strictly ran by volunteers. This is a PetSmart Adopt-a-thon weekend. We pretty much do probably 3 weekends a month throughout the summer, where we go to different areas and we do adopt-a-thons to get the animals again adopted. That is our goal. And this is just a picture of one of our adoptions. There's me back at the school. And our outreach mobile unit. This is one of our newer vehicles. We just purchased that recently, again through a grant. And what we're doing with that is, it's just what it says, it's a community outreach vehicle. If we have people, seniors or people that don't have vehicles and they need to get their animals fixed or treated, this vehicle will go out into the community, pick up the animals, take them to the location, and also return them. We also use it, it goes hand in hand with our mobile spay-neuter clinic, which you'll see in 1 second. Here's an example. 2 weeks ago, we were up at Kenora. They were in desperate need. It's a Indian community, and they were in desperate need overpopulation. We are low on animals currently, so we agreed to assist them, and two of the staff went up and brought back 10 puppies. And this is a picture of the kids at the community with the vehicle. And this is our mobile spay-neuter clinic. It actually sits at our shelter, so if you're ever wanting to have a tour of that, you're all more than welcome to come by. This clinic is being used quite actually effectively. We run wellness days. And what those wellness days are is we go out into the reserve populations and communities, and we vaccinate, microchip, heartworm test all of the animals. It's a clinic in wheels. We perform surgeries. On June the 13th and 14th, we're having a spay day. We hope to spay over 50 animals. So that would be your female population. So it's kind of like a MASH unit where inside the vehicle it is fully equipped and all of the surgeries are performed in there. And the community outreach supports this. So if we have to go out and maybe they can't bring the animals to us, again, it will go out and bring the animals to the mobile clinic. And next we have our education reptile housing facility. We are the only ones in Ontario that actually have a safe house. It's not within our jurisdictions, but we do run it. This is not the facility. This is just an example of the types of reptiles that we have to deal with, as well as some training that's involved. When our instructor was down, he's from Thunder Bay, he was doing the technical communications. We took him over there. He's afraid of snakes, so John decided he was going to show him a good snake. So that was just, the officers all have to be trained in this. We can't really have fear in case we get a call to go out. And that's basically all I have, unless you have some questions.
Thank you very much for your presentation. Do members of council have any questions for Ms. Ellis? Councillor Papp.
So, through you, Mr. Mayor, thank you very much. I have a very personal attachment to the Law and Humane Society, which I'll explain in a minute. The bulk of your funding comes from where?
Fundraising.
Does the city of Welland fund you in any way?
For animal control services.
For animal
different
control.
than the town of Pelham.
And what is your annual budget, roughly?
Our annual budget, I actually don't know that answer, John Greer would.
Okay, so let me just explain to you. I'm very touched by the spay-neuter clinic. My late wife donated $5,000 to that clinic 4 years ago.
Okay.
So I have not had the chance to see this. She was very dedicated and dropped off food, etc., every month. As part of her will, her legacy was to ensure that animals, particularly dogs, cats, were properly spayed and neutered in such a way to control population.
Yes.
The second thing is that my goofy lab, I actually got him through you, who had been left out on Highway 140. And he is now living at the Hilton, and obviously does not want to leave.
Is there more room?
There is, and we are very pleased. So I will make avail of myself to. I want to see the neuter clinic, because at the time, Ron Levins, who was your board president,
Yes,
still is, mentioned, and I didn't know you had opened up, but I would like to have the chance to at least see the.
We were open, this May was our first year anniversary,
Well,
but
I'd
you're
like
all
to-
more than welcome.
Yeah, that's I'm very pleased to see that, and that's a tremendous outcome, because I wasn't quite sure what had happened. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Papp. Thank you. Others, comments, questions? Thank you very much, and perhaps, Councillor Papp, as that gets organized, you can
I'd
let
like-
other members of council
We
know.
can go and see, I'd like to
um,
see this, it's supposed to be very
and see
short.
it.
Yeah,
It sounds, it's wonderful, and I do want to say thank you very much for the update. I know I wasn't aware of all the activities that you're
Right.
involved in, and sometimes we just hear one part of it, and so it's great to hear that you do so many other things, and that you're very, very successful in that. And in addition, I do want to say thank you very much. There are occasions and when we call on you to assist us, and you work with staff, and perhaps as Mr. John Greer, who's helping as well, but things like the exotic pet bylaw that we used staff from the Welland and District Humane Society to assist with that and drafting it, and it was very, very well received here at council. So I want to thank you very much, and thank you for your presentation.
I just want to mention
Councilor
that,
Pat?
by the way, I did receive a special gift last summer from someone on this council that if I get lost, they're to return me to Casey.
Casey's his dog.
It's my dog. And he has a get out of jail card. So if I get into jail, he can bail me out.
Well, we've got the vehicle to.
And it's,
both of
the
you.
address. That's right. You can keep my vehicle. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your presentation. Really appreciate it. Thanks all for attending. And it has been moved by Councillor Durley, second by Councillor King. Be it resolved that the delegation information presented by Amanda Ellis, Welland and District SPCA be received for information. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. Thanks again for your presentation. And no, you do not have to stay for the entire meeting. We were joking about that ahead of time, so thank you very much. Thank you. Now, as the agenda states and was circulated with the agenda, we were to have a presentation from the Prime Minister of the Mayor's Youth Advisory Council. I don't know where Ms. Girardi is right now. Our emails have been down, so maybe she was trying to communicate during the day via email. So we'll have to perhaps invite her to a subsequent or future council meeting to make that presentation. You see by the presentation that there have been some activities by the Mayor's Youth Advisory Council. And I did make an allusion to this last council meeting about the forum that was held and the feedback that they've received. And as I think is in Ms. Girardi's presentation, that's some of the feedback that she wants to bring to the Architectural Design Advisory Committee. So Councillor Durley, as our rep on that, you can look forward to seeing that information come forward. And as the specialized consultations and the other work goes on, we're hoping that the feedback from the youth in our community can be incorporated. So we'll look forward to receiving that. There's other additional information in there as well, and so we look forward to receiving that at a future date. Councillor Papp, just
Thank
to
you.
that.
Just to that, Mr. Mayor, I just want to mention that Lisa was also one of our 5 Slapshot Rotary students. First time in history we've actually sent somebody to this very special leadership program at the end of April from Font Hill. And she was outstanding. She ended up being one of the top, so I was looking one of the top. These are kids from all over Western New York. There's about 100 of them. And she just, shining star.
Yeah.
That's all I'm going to say. So I'd like to get her to comment on that too, because that was quite an experience for her.
Okay, thank you
Thanks.
very much. We'll look forward to her coming to council at another time. And now we move to a report from Regional Councillor Brian Beatty. Thank you very much for joining us, Councillor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council and staff. The report is fairly straightforward. I want to comment on one thing, and that is that the committee meeting that was held prior to the last council meeting, both the mayor and I were not present. He was in Europe, and I had family returning from Europe on route to Edmonton. But it's a case where it was a very, in my view, a very black day for the impression of the regional council and its position with regard to regional intermunicipal transit. In fact, the motion that then happened at this council meeting very strongly reaffirmed the fact that yes, we very definitely want to continue with the process that we're on. We're expanding some routes, and it's a case where we're wanting the 3 current major providers to try and forge some form of partnership that would lead us forward to a truly integrated system with a single fare. We're not interested in having the idea of, some people misinterpret this, the concept of going out and seeking a triple majority was not in any way a reflection on the basis of the region itself wanting to become the provider of that service. We would much rather have the experience of the 3 major providers and perhaps private industry as well in terms of doing that. So that's the major item that I want to comment, and actually the only item I want to comment on this report, and be very happy to answer any questions should there be any.
Thank you very much, Councillor Beatty, and that was, I think, unanimous by Regional Council. Or no, maybe it wasn't, but it was certainly nearly unanimous
One person voted
support on that intermunicipal transit and extending the pilot and funding it. So I know Councillor Papp sits on our Transportation Strategy Steering Committee. There were some questions on the interaction and involvement of that committee as this moves forward. And certainly there will be an opportunity for that involvement. I did say when I spoke to it that I think it's very, very important, especially given the grant that we've received and was supported last council meeting, and there's an update later on committee, that all of the area municipalities are included in the discussion. Mayor Senzek out of St. Catharines, who put the motion forward, and I seconded it, he indicated absolutely that we wanted to make sure that all the municipalities are involved and at the table and in the discussion. So no doubt that will come with interactions with staff, the CAO. There was a letter from the 3 CAOs from the major providers of transit, and so it will come that way, but also at the level of council as well. So thank you for highlighting that, Councillor. Do questions, comments regarding that issue initially, Councillor Papp?
Just very happy that they took that position. As someone that's been sitting there for 10 years, it was a black day, and I couldn't quite understand what the rationale was, especially after all the effort that's gone into an economic strategy that hinges on transportation, let alone all the other land development. And you're quite correct. In the discussions, there was never to take it over. If we could run it in tandem with the other 3 and work with them, that's essential. And also, it would help because as of June 10th, I know you're going to be away, we're having our seniors forum, and this is one of the pivotal things that keeps coming up through our seniors discussions, is the issue of transportation, both intra and inter. So I'm looking forward to hearing from actually the chair of the committee, Councillor Tony Quirk, is going to be here just to give us an overview, along with members of the regional staff. So that'll be extremely helpful, especially with our pilot project as we're trying to figure out how we're going to do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Any others to that issue that Councillor Beatty raised? Any others to any questions from Councillor Beatty's report of what's going on at Regional Council? Councillor Papp again?
Thanks. I just had a brief discussion, Councillor Beatty, and maybe between the two of you can. I read in the paper that there is now a task force formed to rebuild the 3 homes for the aged, Niagara-on-the-Lake, St. Catharines, Glenhaven, and also Fort Erie. So my question to him and to Mr. Mayor was just, there was some suggestion made that there would be a citizen appointees involved. So you don't have to. I don't need an answer. Just I'm curious because the source said they're going to ask citizens to sit on this task force, which I find would be highly unusual. If there could be some clarification, and maybe that would help.
I'm personally surprised with that.
Yeah, I don't think there was a call for
There's no citizen appointees,
reps.
right?
It was representatives from the municipalities.
I wanted to do that publicly because there was some confusion out there. People thought they could apply to this task force
Yeah,
to be part of it.
We can check tomorrow at the region as well, just ask for clarity.
Okay,
So we'll do
thank
that.
you very much.
Okay, thank
Thanks.
you.
Mr. Mayor, the one thing I did inquire, talking with Councilor Rubia regarding the Greater Niagara Circular Committee, and for whatever reason the committee didn't go forward, I'm assuming he would want to continue as rep. I can't say that for certain, but
You're right.
I've asked the clerk's office to look into that in terms of.
Okay. I think the clerk's indicating it's been sent.
It was sent right after the appointment, Mr. Mayor.
Okay,
But
so,
I'll follow up with the regional clerk.
okay, thank you.
Don't know what that means.
Okay, thank you. The final thing, it is highlighted in your report, Councillor Beatty, and that is regarding the coordinated policy review. That's regarding the province asking for feedback from municipalities like we gave, looking at the Greenbelt, the Niagara Escarpment plan, and places to grow. I just want to assure council that the items that we've talked about here around this table are included, and Councillor Beatty and I were quite strong supporters of that, and including those features into that report. So they include things like the hamlet for Ridgeville, the community services, municipal services like fire halls. There was discussion as well about the Fawn Hill Came and protecting the Came and trying to do that further under the Greenbelt. And I think those were the major pieces that this council wanted in the review. So they are in that review, and we appreciate staff assisting the region and making sure that they're there as well.
One of the areas of criticism that came in that regional report is warranted, but not to the point where it's final. The Escarpment Commission does have the original mapping done in 1985. They've updated that with new modern science, etc. They're looking at inclusion of wood loss and so on. So there are 4 options of mapping that may change the designated, but we have not, being the Niagara Escarpment Commission, chosen a final option for that. and we may not be able to do that. It may be the MNRF that makes that determination. We simply are putting the options out, and the reason it wasn't put out completely, it's been on the website for some time, it's evolved, but there's still, at the next meeting in June, there's still one final section that we need the mapping updated. And I'm hoping at some point in time to have a meeting with the Rotary Club and also maybe a presentation through the newspaper in terms of the impact of the boundaries of the escarpment as it affects the town of Pelham. Unlike the greenbelt, it's not a straight line, and there are several designations. The advantage for the changing, if there's a greater amount of natural area, that the owners of those properties, in fact, have a tax rebate. There's an incentive for that to happen. And it's not like the wetlands, which is a detriment. In fact, it would be seen to be an asset.
Or the green belt. If you have green belt on your property, you can't really claim a tax break either, so it's good to hear. Thank you very much for the update, Councillor. Anything from other members of Council? So it has been moved by Councillor Papp, seconded by Councillor Durley. Be it resolved that a report submitted by Regional Councillor Beatty dated June 1st, 2015 be received for information. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. Thanks very much, Councillor. Now we move to adoption of minutes. It's been moved by Councillor Papp, seconded by Councillor King, that the following minutes be adopted as printed, circulated, and read. Minutes of a regular meeting of Council of May 19th, 2015. Are there any errors or omissions? There being none, I call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. Councillor Ribbiak, you added an item to the agenda regarding the band shell. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a very quick question. I wonder whether you can inform council whether the town has received financials from the Fonthill Bandshell Concerts, Inc.
Thank you. Madam Treasurer?
Thank you. Yes, I received the information yesterday. I reviewed the information, and it's standard with the other parties that had provided information for their municipal grant as well. So,
Yesterday being Friday.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
We're not giving you
Friday.
overtime.
Thank you.
Okay.
Councillor?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So that hurdle has been crossed, and there will be no complication, I guess, about the Bandshell series going ahead this year. At least not from us.
Madam Treasurer?
That's right. Right now, we're putting together the same standard award letter, which details all of the subsidies and the grant allocations that the town has provided. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else to that matter? Thank you. Now we move to consent agenda items to be considered in block. Are there any items that council would like lifted for separate consideration? Councillor Durley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to lift item 11.5.10.1, the ADAC minutes. There's some things I would like to add to that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any others? I wondered if 11.4.1, the speed limit reduction, wondered if we can lift that and just maybe have a quick discussion about it. 11.4.1. Anything else? Councillor Papp, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I don't, well, yeah, I'm going to lift it just because I need clarification. 11.3.1, the Downtown Fenwick Grand Opening Event, if staff can answer the questions, I don't think we need to lift it, but I think I would rather,
Okay,
I want to just ask a couple of clarifying questions.
okay, thank you. So, lift it.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you. Anyone else? It's been moved by Councillor Durley, second by Councillor Ribbiak. Be it resolved the following consent agenda items be received and the recommendations contained therein be approved as applicable. 1, recommendations from our policy and priorities meetings of May 19th, that the recommendations arriving from P&P May 19th be received and approved, and the council approve the hiring and placement of a crossing guard at the intersection of Highway 20 West and Hay Street beginning September 8th, 2015, between the hours that were in the report, 8:20 and 8:50 a.m., between 3:30 and 4 p.m. during school days. And further, that the chief building official initiate a review of the town's building permit and other respective fees, and further, that the CBO retain a qualified consultant to review and prepare a justification report regarding the increase of the town's building permit and other respective fees, and further, that the acting CAO pay policy is hereby approved as amended. Then we move to minutes of the P&P meeting of, the minutes of that meeting, not just the resolutions, and that that the minutes be approved. Now to staff reports of a routine nature for information or action. The first one has been lifted, but the second is the Greenbelt Community Street Mural Project. Be it resolved, the council received this report and the council authorizes staff to work with the Friends of the Greenbelt to proceed with the street mural project at the intersection of Canberra Road and Effingham Street in Ridgeville on Friday, June 12th, with a rain date of June 26th, and that staff be authorized to proceed immediately with the posting of appropriate road detour signage and communication with area residents and the business community. Sign variance to allow village artists to use sandwich board signs as detailed in the report. The next item is proposed bylaw to dedicate roads as a public highway. Be it resolved that part of Effingham Street, the purpose of a bylaw is to dedicate certain lands of public highway. Part of Effingham Street be received and the council consider enacting the bylaw later on this evening's agenda. Then we have action correspondence of a routine nature. One has been lifted. The second is the Niagara Peninsula Energy Media Release. Be it resolved that the Town of Pelham Council received the media release from NPEI and that council hereby supports the lobbying efforts of Niagara Peninsula Energy to acquire Hydro One distribution assets adjacent to NPEI's geographic service territory and those specifically within the Town of Pelham. Then we have information correspondence items, amendments to the Public Sector and MPP Accountability and Transparency Act. Information regarding the Celebrate Canada program from the Minister of Canadian Heritage. Information regarding the NPCA report regarding the provincial plan review. A thank you letter from Pelham Cares regarding their municipal grant. Public safety issues which arose during the 2013 and 14 Short Hills Provincial Parks hunt. So there's correspondence regarding that. Summer Camp Fund Grant Program from the Niagara Community Foundation. Information regarding the 10th and final Jeanette G. Marco Memorial Charity Tournament. A thank you letter. A Town of Aurora Canada Post letter regarding Canada Post, and we're receiving that for information. And finally, under committee minutes for information, Summerfest committee minutes of May 12th, 2015. Questions, comments on any of those items? Councillor Papp?
Very quickly, through you, Mr. Mayor, to Vicky, just congratulations on the Celebrate Canada program. There's one thing I just noticed, and I don't know if it's ever been an issue. It asks for our material to be printed both official languages. Is that the case?
Ms. Van Ravensway?
Yes, it is.
Okay, good. Because I had a question, someone asked me about, okay, so it's
Yes, our programs are both in French and
both in
English.
French and English. Thank you, that answers it. Thank you.
Thank you. Others? Councillor Rivyak.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a question with regard to item 1142, the Niagara Peninsula Energy, Inc. I didn't lift it because I'm entirely supportive of any effort to reduce the costs, the utility costs to residents of Pelham. But I wonder whether you might give us, in your capacity as our representative on the board of NPEI, you might explain how there was a relationship between the announcement that the government made about the sale of 60% ownership and our attempt to, or the NPEI's attempt to acquire assets. Doesn't seem like it flows from the announcement. The press release that was included with this thing seemed to indicate that there was a close connection. I don't understand it. Perhaps you might explain it.
Thank you very much, Councillor. I'll quickly try and do that. This is an issue that's been worked on by the board of NPI for a little bit. And what we've been doing, and I've provided council with a copy of a letter or a news release from the EDA, which is the Electrical Distributors Association of Ontario. All of the electricity distributors of Ontario have got together a year ago or more ago to try to lobby the government because they heard about this occurring. And their lobby effort was essentially saying, instead of trying to sell the company of Hydro One, sell specific assets. So instead of selling ownership of the company,
Right.
sell assets.
By part of it, yeah.
So that in the case of Pelham, where we have the former village of Font Hill, is Niagara Peninsula Energy territory and is covered. So some members of council live in that area. Some almost across the street, like the arena, for instance, is in Hydro One territory, and across the street on Haste is in NPEI territory. So it's kind of very confusing for individuals, but also very expensive. You'll see in the news release that it's possibly as much as $450 a year more for Ontario Hydro customers than Niagara Peninsula Energy customers. So what we were trying to do sort of quietly as a larger association was try to lobby the government to sell those assets as opposed to ownership. And you'll see the news release here that they got a little bit more public as it came out with the budget, et cetera, and the consultation. The government decided that it wanted to not do it that way, that it wanted to sell ownership of Hydro One. And so at the board level, I raised the topic, and I was very pleased that Wayne Thompson, I think this is also included in here, Wayne Thompson, who's the chair of the holding company in Niagara Falls, supported this initiative. It would really be the holding companies that would do the purchasing, to say, you know what, let's try and get the remaining assets in Pelham under NPEI territory and control so that they can be managed by Niagara Peninsula Energy and hopefully also reduce the costs. So this is sort of the start of that lobbying effort, and I have a call in to Minister Bradley, for instance, to try to work together with the province to do that. So we're trying to lower the rates, also provide local ownership to it, and as you'll see in the news release, you know, those dollars essentially are leaving the community. If those distribution assets were managed by Niagara Peninsula Energy, it would mean that NPI workers would use them, you know, from Niagara region, et cetera, would take care of them and replace the poles, et cetera. That may not be the case now. And sometimes the maintenance is, you know, the crews aren't here directly. There is a yard in Thorold, but, you know, it's not as much interaction as we'd have with NPI. So, you know, wanted to bring this to council for a resolution so that we can support it, and would encourage us to support it. And I hope that answers your question.
It does. If I understand it, then what's being proposed by the lobbying effort of the EDA is a different direction than the government of Ontario has announced. They want to sell ownership. We want to acquire assets. So those are two, I guess, distinctly different initiatives, and I suppose the initiative here would continue even if 60% of the company was sold. I guess we would still be looking to gain those assets if they were ever made available to us.
That's correct. So this, again, is a bit more of a public way of doing that lobbying. And you're quite right. When the government, I think they're selling it off in pieces, so 15% initially as opposed to the entire 60 all at once. So this can still occur, and hopefully, as they continue to do that ownership sale, that perhaps they can look at asset sale as well.
Thank you. Perhaps some thought might be given to how we in the town might be able to support that even more. It sounds like something that residents of Pelham could benefit from tremendously if those that are not currently under NPEI jurisdiction in this area. It would be something that I think people would be interested in. If there's more that can happen, it'd be interesting to know. I don't know who could explore that, but I leave it for you to consider.
Well, I think following council approval of this, we can step up the lobby efforts. You know, when you're talking $450 a year, that's quite a bit for customers, just for a different distribution network. So it doesn't make a pile of sense. Anyone else on that issue? Councillor Papp?
Couldn't agree more. I mean, I'm one of those Hydro One customers, and I can tell you it's going to be more than $450 a year.
It is.
The distinction in rates and consumption and bills, you'd be surprised.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess the reverse of that is, if what you're saying is, if the pieces are sold by Ontario Hydro to company ABC, we could end up with company ABC managing those assets here.
I think possibly, and so we want to make sure that yeah, we don't, it's already bad enough that we have
Right.
two different companies
Well,
or
that's what I'm
whatever in
getting
the
at.
town. It would be better to put them all under one contiguous service. So right now, it's the former village of Font Hill.
Right.
And then it is under NPI and West
Right.
Lincoln and Lincoln. So to bring it all together would make, a pile of sense. It'd be one contiguous territory as opposed to, Swiss cheese approach.
So I presume, Mr. Mayor, that we're in 2.5 months, we'll be at AMO. I'm sure this is going to be a very hot topic, the sale of this particular asset and how it impacts locals. So I think this is probably the appropriate time to push forward and let them know through our AMO and also provincial level that we are very interested in acquiring those and running them.
Yes.
We can do it and save money, because I keep hearing we're saving money, and that's not what I see on the bills.
That's right.
I'll be very blunt, it's not what's happening, so hopefully this will be the right move. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Anyone else to that issue? Councillor Durley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And just building on what Councillor Papp has said, would it be wise for us to petition to meet with the Minister of Energy to
Great,
discuss
great.
that at the meeting? We
Yes.
do have the opportunity at AMO to speak with these ministers, and that would be an ideal time to put a case together and
Yes.
let our facts be known, so.
Okay, well, thank you. It's a great idea from
Great
councillors,
suggestion.
and they're coming here to Niagara Falls in NPI territory, so maybe we can lobby that effort as well, a little bit more strongly. So following this council passing this, we'll certainly endeavor to do that along with other lobbying efforts that we need to do at AMO as well. Thank you. Anyone else to that issue? Anyone else to any of the other issues on the agenda? Councillor Ribbiak?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. With regard to 1151, the amendments to the Public Sector and MPP Accountability and Transparency Act 2014, I guess with the passage of this, our position is we have the ombudsman as the town ombudsman at this point, or are we planning to do something different?
Madam Clerk, are you able to answer that question?
Through
At
you,
least the
Mr.
first
Mayor.
part?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we will prepare a report on the impacts of this.
Thank you.
We'll bring forward.
Thank you, and I don't think it takes effect until the new year,
New year, January.
January 1st, 2016. Okay, thank you. Others to that at this point, or we'll wait the report? Any other items under consent agenda that you'd like to discuss? Councillor Durley, Councillor Papp, you raised the grant from Celebrate Canada program. Also want to say congratulations to staff for the summer camp fund grant from the Niagara Community Foundation, $1,000 there. Every little bit helps. So kudos to staff for that. With there being no further discussion on any of the items under consent agenda, I'm going to call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. We did lift some items for separate consideration. Councillor Durley, you were first.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to amend the resolution to receive the minutes for information from the said ADAC committee meetings of May 12 and 19. March 12th. My mistake. And a resolution to be amended to read that council receive the minutes for information and direct staff to explore and report with additional means by which programs and activities within the proposed multi-use community center can be delivered in order to ensure and maximize effectiveness, efficiency, sustainability in meeting and satisfying the needs and demands of our community. That's the motion. I do have some rationale to go with it, if I can get a seconder for that and
Thank
get
you.
it on the floor.
Thank you, Councillor. Is there a seconder? Councillor Papp will second that. And I believe you provided that wording to the clerk. Go ahead, Councillor.
Yes. The rationale behind that is, and I have some notes here, forgive me if I'll be reading this, but to me, this is a very important issue at this particular point in time of the design and operations somehow coming together. There's been much public feedback regarding how the facility will be operating. Much of this feedback is the result of a lack of understanding of all aspects of the building, maintaining and operating a complex of the proposed size and versatility that this community center could provide. Up to this point, in a very exploratory and non-binding, unofficial, but yet authorized manner, discussion has been carried out with the YMCA to gather valuable input regarding how such a facility should operate. Public feedback, and in some cases public pushback, has been that no other avenue of operation procedure has been traveled, and the intent of this resolution is to allow all parties, public and private sector included, not excluding our town's recreation committee either, not exclusively them, but certainly they could be included, as an opportunity to offer a proposed delivering, or to offer a proposal delivering
What can be offered?
a proposal outlining what can be offered, to whom it can be offered, and at what price this offering would be available, and how the bidding proponent would provide services, that is, the maintenance, the house cleaning, security, and other things that are involved with that. The resolution did not stipulate how this information should be gathered to allow staff the latitude as to the various means that can be used. Open are the opportunities for RFPs, tenders, letters of intent with substantial evidence that are necessary to carry out the duties that can be met. This list is not exclusive pertaining to suggested means to gather input. Staff is wide open to use whatever vehicle they need to in order to get some comparative numbers to see how, what best way we can operate this facility with the design that the ADAC is coming forward with, or suggesting to come forward with. Design of this facility is moving along with many improvements to the original footprint being considered, many of these suggestions being brought forward from the ADAC, who have been working diligently to offer what it feels is in the best interest of the community. Once the final design has been approved by council, we will be in a position to consider who, what, when, where, and how this facility will function. It is with a complete understanding that the formula design plus function plus operation plus comfort plus sustainability equals success. I'm opening this for comments, and I'm looking at a possible way that we can ensure that everybody in this town, or anybody who is interested in helping us to make this project a success, has an opportunity to do it. And in fact, it gets the perception out there that we are being exclusive and not allowing people to take part in this. And I open it for discussion.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor Durley. Other councillors to the motion? Councillor Ribbiak?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you to Councillor Durley for giving this the thought that he did and coming up with the proposal. I think that finding the best way of providing programming is something that we would all want to do, and I don't think we want to cut ourselves off from any opportunity to do that. And so I'm going to support that. But I do want us to consider how long a process we're talking about, how much it might cost, how to evaluate the results of that. I guess what I'm concerned about more than anything else is not adding a whole lot of time to the decision-making process that we've embarked upon. We're going to need to make a decision, as I understand it, somewhere toward the end of this year, and I'm concerned that that not be taken too far off the rails. But I think finding, if there is a better way of doing things and we have the opportunity to find it, then I'm entirely supportive of that.
Okay, thank you. Maybe this, you've asked a couple of questions in terms of timing. I wonder if maybe the CAO would like to comment on the timing element that Councillor Ribbiak raised.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. To answer the councillor's question, I foresee more than likely a call for proposal process, and I expect that would be in the neighborhood of about a 6 to 8 week start to finish exercise.
And that would then come back to council, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
For clarity, is that
Jack and then Councillor Durley.
Thank you. So for clarity, that's the request for proposals, 6 to 8 weeks, or the entire project completed in 6 to 8 weeks?
No, I'm suggesting, Mr. Mayor, that the process we're putting for, you have to put together a request for proposals. We'd have to do some research, then we'd have to put that out for bid, and then we'd have to leave sufficient time. It's a significant project, so you want to make sure that the respondents have time to put together a decent proposal. evaluate the proposal, and then come back to council with a recommendation.
Mr. Mayor, through you, and then we start the data finding and the analysis.
I'm sorry, I'm confused, Mr. Mayor. My understanding was that staff will make a recommendation to council based on the proposal outcomes.
Okay, so 6 to 8 weeks to get to a point where we could be looking at alternatives.
That's correct.
Good, okay, thank you.
Councillor Durley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a point of clarity, I'm not trying to put a roadblock into the design function, which is at where we're at right now. The design is going to continue on. As a matter of fact, on Wednesday, there's going to be, the architects are down to discuss certain aspects of the specialized needs of some groups within the facility. This design work is going to continue, and there's a meeting scheduled on June the 18th of the entire ADAC, which is geared to design. Now, the ADAC has indicated that some of the design may be very much dependent upon how the operation of the facility will go. However, design needs to be separated from the operations, and what I'm trying to do at this particular stage is to allow the design part to go forward and to allow staff to come forward with what the next step would be, is how we can operate this thing. And I think I'm trying to define the distinction there and take the perception away that it's a done deal, that it's going to operate in this particular way, because it's not. We have not given that authority as yet. So, in fact, this is, in my opinion, a way that we can clarify the functions. Certainly, design is very important at this particular stage. From that design, we will take forward to how we're going to operate within there. We know we need gyms. We know we need this. We know we need that. After we know the needs and are going to provide the needs, then we'll look at how these needs are going to be met through operations. And that's the entire gist of what I'm trying to bring forward.
Thank you very much, Councillor Durley. Appreciate that clarity. Others to the amendment? Councillor Papp?
I understand where Councillor Durley is going with this, because it's very important that our general public understand very clearly how we're undertaking the actual, I should say, engagement of a particular group, whatever that may be, in operating the facility. It has to be very clear. I just don't, I'm also concerned, I'm not concerned, I guess, the time involved with the CAO saying, so you go 8 weeks, and then probably another month to come back and say to us, we think in the best interests of this project, this is the way in which it should be operated. I'm being general. So we're looking in fall, September, if I'm not mistaken. Now, if there's a way of shortcutting it, and I don't like to use that term, other than we basically know what we're going to be operating. I mean, let's put it this way, it'll be a duality anyways, because the way I understand it is the ice facilities would be run by the town, correct? Am I wrong? Right? It's a question of who's going to look after the community center, whether that's a matrix, if I want to use it, or one organization. That's the issue, right? And how they're going to handle it. Yeah. So is there some method which we can somehow, I mean, some of those components are pretty straightforward, like who cleans it, who enters into agreements, what programming goes in. But I respect if it takes that time to do the research in order to come back with a wise direction, then I think we need to take that time.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. So you've asked and commented on a couple of areas. The one is the timing, which the CEO can further comment on. The other is sort of really what would be asked for with a request for proposals or whatever method is going to move forward on that. So maybe we can get some clarity on that piece so that we all understand exactly what it is that's incumbent in the motion. Mr. CAO?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I can't give specific detail yet because it's something that we would have to do some research on. But generally speaking, my understanding is it is to put a call for proposals to investigate the opportunities around a service delivery and operating partnership, which may be it could be a sort of private-public partnership, it could be a not-for-profit partnership, or it could be no one bids. So I'm not exactly sure, but it would be around making sure that the interests of the town in keeping the sustainability and the long-term operating expense with as close to the existing business case as we can as to avoid being community center poor, if you will, or in a situation where we turn over our asset to a private sector entity that does not have the best interests of the local community at heart and is interested in maximizing profits. So there's a lot of things that we'll have to look into, but it's something that I think we can get done and have back to council within a 6 to 8 week time frame.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
All right, that's, yeah, if you're confident, you could. And I think to pick it up, Mr. CEO, you're quite correct. Questions of, we have examples of that surrounding us, where the last thing we want is whether whoever operates it, including us, we want to make sure it's sustainable. I mean, for the long term, we do not want to be in a situation, and this has happened in a couple of venues that I know of, where both public, private were involved, and then, we're looking at hundreds of thousands of dollars in operating losses, which is not, so that means that we build what we know people will actually use and maximize the use for it, and they'll pay for it, because there's a whole different sense of that. So I'm confident, I have the confidence in you that bring it back 6 to 8 weeks. We'd rather take the time to do this properly, so that we make sure the right decision. And sometimes whatever that decision is, the truth is, we've all known this, and I've seen this before, where 2, 3 years we get it built, and hopefully we get it. Sometimes things change, and sometimes operators change, and I've seen that happen with some particular groups in other municipalities. So I look forward to that, Mr. CEO.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Councillor Junkin.
So just to clarify, the resolution, is it parallel with the MOU with the Y, or is it now going to replace, and then the Y becomes a bidder also? Is that how it, that's what we're looking at?
Mr. CEO, can you clarify that?
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That is correct, that to ensure that there is fairness in our procurement of a operating entity that we are soliciting, you're giving that opportunity, providing that to whoever may be interested and capable, which would include the Y.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, good question. That'll help clarify that. Others for the first time, Councillor Ribbiak for the second time.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for the second time. To ensure inclusion of the town as well, part of what I've heard over the weeks is that there's a great deal of confidence, quite properly developed in our own staff in running programs. And I think that one of the questions that would need to be answered by this exercise is the comparison, the evaluation between the town providing those programming and the Y or whoever else providing it as well. So I just offer that as, and I think it's within Councillor Durley's proposal as well, that the town be considered a candidate in providing those programs also.
Okay, thank you very much. Any others? I do want to comment as well. I think it's certainly appreciate Councillor Durley bringing it forward, and it's wise to consider. I have received some feedback as well on this, and I think, looking at some of the feedback both from the minutes of these meetings, so it's right to do it here, minutes of other meetings like the Seniors Advisory Committee. Yeah. We received those minutes last meeting, and there was some concern about the memorandum of understanding and what that might mean, etc. And just people broadly in the community quite concerned about that. What this will do is really level the playing field. This will, as the CEO indicated, sort of supplant the MOU at this time, and say, okay, we have everybody. Here's what it is we're interested in. Give us your proposals, and then those will be evaluated and come back to council. It could be various providers, as the CEO also indicated. It could be not-for-profit. It could be profit. It could be a combination of, or it could be no one. And I know that the experience that another municipality south of here had with that, they bid it out twice. And I'm not sure of all the details. It may have been just a component of what they wanted to do, and there were, no takers. So this will clear the air. This will answer the questions that are out in the community and answer the questions that we have in our own minds as well. So I am very supportive of the amendment and look forward to this coming forward. I'm also pleased, as Councillor Durley indicated, that this will not stall or in any way, shape, or form hold back the design. It is a pretty tight timeline that we have for that design. And I know the committee will continue to work diligently on that, and we do have players around the table that will continue to work diligently on that design to make sure it's the best design for our community. So with that, I too am supportive of this and look forward to this coming back with the amount of work that's required, but also rather quickly to make sure that we can answer some of these questions that the community have been asking for us. Are there any others that want to make any further comments before I call the question? There being none, I'm going to call the question on the amendment. All those in favor? Any opposed? That is carried unanimously. Thank you, Councillor Durley. And others. Councillor Papp, you lifted an item regarding the downtown Fenwick grand opening.
30 seconds. You never usually hear me ask these questions, but did we do a celebration like this for the downtown Font Hill?
Ms. Van Ravensway?
I can't remember.
Mr. Mayor, yes, it's called Summerfest.
I think that's when you got your dog tag that you were talking about earlier, Councillor Papp.
I'll have to bark. I won't bark at that one. Okay. All right, then I just, that answers the other. So I'll wait and see. $10,000 is being allocated, but it's allocated from where? I always look at Madam Treasurer. Where's this money coming from? The line of credit? or- Vicky's raises, is that right?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, from the Director of Rec Services budget.
That's what I thought.
Where would it be?
Okay, so are you going to, just quickly, you're going to ask,
Dueling directors here.
are you going to ask, through you, Mr. Mayor, you're going to ask the businesses to maybe offer some in-kind, is that the idea? Or
Ms. Van
I'll wait till
Ravensway, do you have
report.
some plans at this point, or is it preliminary? Can you
Through
add?
you, Mr. Mayor. Everything is preliminary. We just met as staff to
Okay.
determine the date. We'll be meeting with businesses hopefully by the end of the week to determine what their pleasure is.
Okay, thank you. As embarrassed as I am, I forgot about the Summerfest. No wonder I got a dog tag.
There could be other wonderful events that come out of this event.
Oh, I was
The
like, well,
CA
at
wants
least I'm willing
to-
to criticize myself, so.
Thank you. CEO
All
wants
right,
to
thanks, I got that.
comment or add?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's not our position at this point to go to businesses to ask for in-kind. There was significant disruption for a lengthy period of time in the business community. So our intent is to rather go to the business community and ask them what they would like to see the celebration look like as a way to signal the end of the project, the vibrancy of the community, and to support the local businesses in the downtown area. So that's really what our intention is at this point. So the next meeting, as you see in the report, will be with the business community to discuss what they would like to see for their downtown as far as the grand opening goes.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Papp?
And I would offer that Mr. Mayor and I met with the Chamber and others. We would do everything possible to help you with that celebration and bringing our, like I say, expertise in play as well. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. So I believe it's moved by Councillor Durley, second by Councillor Rivak, since there's no changes. Be it resolved that Council receive the issue summary report downtown Fenwick grand opening event, and the following recommendations be and are hereby approved. That Council endorse a one-day celebration on Saturday, July 11th, 2015 for a grand opening of downtown Fenwick, and the Council hereby authorizes staff to work with members of the Fenwick Beautification Committee and the downtown Fenwick businesses to proceed with the celebration, and that an upset limit of $10,000 be allocated to facilitate the event, and the staff be directed to facilitate the appropriate downtown road closures as required. Chamber of Commerce, Pelham Business Association, as Councillor Papp indicated, can also be included in that work. Any other questions, comments regarding that motion? There being none, I'm going to call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion's carried. So please put that in your schedule, July 11th, 2015, for a grand reopening of downtown Fenwick. The last item I lifted, and I did so because I thought we needed more wording. The wording is actually here as to what was posted on the agenda. So looking for investigation and report, it just said to send to staff. So I would ask that moved by Councillor Durley, second by Councillor Ribbiak, that be it resolved that the council receive the correspondence from Mr. Roman Krasinski regarding the speed limit on South Pelham, and the correspondence from Mr. Krasinski be forwarded to Public Works staff for investigation and report. That's the only simple amendment. So we'll look forward to hearing back from that, and hopefully we can assist. Any other questions or comments regarding that? I'm going to call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. Thank you. So that's dealing with all of the items under consent agenda, I believe. And now we move to presentation and consideration of reports. If you give me a second here, I'll pull up my report.
Move it.
You'll see my report here of activities since our last meeting. Just want to speak about a few of them. Along with Councillors Durley, Junkin, King, and Ribbiak, I was pleased to participate with Recreation, Culture, and Wellness staff on the annual fabulous Fenwick Lions Carnival Parade. And also, it was a great parade, and it worked out very well, actually, with our driver of that, keeping pace with all of the other floats, as was requested. Also pleased to attend other portions of the carnival. It was a great weekend for weather and a great carnival, and what a wonderful addition, the Tom Bishop's amazing Wild West show. Huge crowds, both at 1:30 and at 4 o'clock. So congratulations to the Fenwick Lions for a very, very successful event. Real community raiser. I'm pleased to report that a sold-out crowd raised more than $21,000 at a Prohibition-themed 7th Annual Pelham Mayor's Gala at Lookout Golf Course on Saturday. I was very, very pleased that Councillor Papp was able to attend, along with Mayor Campion and Mayor Joyner, Mayor Campion from Welland and Mayor Joyner from West Lincoln. This year's gala supported the work of 5 different community initiatives: Women's Place of South Niagara to help expand their Youth at Risk mentoring program by providing resources; the Royal Canadian Army Cadets Fawn Hill Branch 613 providing funds to send one cadet in need to France to be part of the 99th anniversary commemorations of the Battle of Vimy Ridge in 2016. And I'm sure you'll be hearing more about that in ways that people can participate and support. Also support of Family and Children's Services of Niagara to provide funds to allow 10 children who are FACTS clients to attend summer camps in Niagara. Horse Sense for Kids, providing funding for 6 Pelham Cares client children to participate in a Wild West summer camp at B&R Stables in Fenwick. And also supporting Autism Niagara, providing autism support workers so that some youth can attend their special summer camp on the appropriate ratio for those children, either 1-on-1 or 3-to-1 ratio of campers to support workers. Many thanks to the event sponsors, including Sterling Realty Niagara, the Allen Group, aka Fawn Hill Gardens, Accipiter Radar, Alpha Dome and Mountain View Homes, Bayshore Groups, Daniel and Partners, Dr. Peter Fritz, the Planning Partnership, Rankin Construction, and Sapphires Jewelers. And also, I appreciate your latitude in me expressing deep appreciation to the organizing committee. They included Meredith Fuller, Ian Hamilton, Ross McFarlane, Ursula Radbone, Leah Ugliani, and, as I've written here, the organizer supreme, Martha Toscher. Amazing, wonderful event. Everything went off without a hitch. So thank you very much. The final event that I do want to talk about, and I was very pleased that Councillor Durley was there as well. Pleased to attend the opening of Zena Homes, their model home, which took place on Saturday. Beautiful model home, 3 levels with an elevator, amazing vista. And they have 14 lots up in the area behind the fire hall. If we get a chance, I would encourage you to take a look at that. So thank you, Councillor Durley, for being there, and congratulations to Zena Homes, who are from the Hamilton Stony Creek area, for starting to build in our community. Very good discussions with them and with the brothers, who are essentially saying they look to Pelham as one of the prime areas in Niagara. So we're very pleased to have them here, and wish them all the luck in that. So without further ado, it has been moved by Councillor Papp, second by Councillor King. Be it resolved that Council receive my report of June 1st, 2015 for information. Going to call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. Thank you. Now we move to staff reports requiring action. We have 4. The first has been moved by Councillor Papp, seconded by Councillor Ribbiak. Be it resolved, the council receives the issue summary report as it pertains to repeal and replacement of the town's parkland dedication bylaw number 2682, and further the council considers a bylaw 2621 to be presented later this evening to repeal and replace the existing parkland dedication bylaw. Comments, questions regarding this?
No, straightforward.
Good move.
Forward. Good. I guess the only question, and thank you very much, staff, for bringing it forward, the only question that came out of it, this kind of came out of staff looking at the official plan and saying the official plan and the existing bylaw were out of sync, and this brings it into compliance. I guess my only other question is, are there other items that we can expect that staff will bring forward regarding the official plan and the current planning documents that we have?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the clerk's department and the planning department are working together to go through the official plan and the other policies to see where there may be some oddities or disjointed connections. The next round you'll see, I intend to bring a report on the site plan manual, process and fees, etc. And there are some bylaws that, again, are maybe out of joint, so we'll be bringing them to at the same time. So there is a process to go through where we be reviewing these policies and bylaws and bringing them forward when we see an oddity.
Okay, thank you very much. I think it's important to follow up on the approval of the official plan, and we certainly appreciate staff doing that and changing, recommending changes to the parkland dedication bylaw, and I hope you keep us informed of other changes as they're required, as you've indicated. So thank you. Councillor Papp?
While we're doing that, I was expecting something along about the intensification, the coverage that we ran into. Is that issue being addressed about the 25%? I understood it was going to be here.
Deal with that quickly?
Or are we going to be dealing with it later?
No, through you, Mr. Mayor. On that basis, that is on the planning department's agenda to take care of. We're now, due to the amount of workload that we currently have, we're looking at late June, early July for direction report, and then a follow-up report very quickly after that.
Okay, good. That's all I want to know. Thank you.
Thanks very much. And perhaps if there's other questions, some of those can be answered in the director's report to council and committee. Anything else on the parkland dedication? I guess I kind of opened the door to this, but anything else on the parkland dedication? Going to call a question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. Councillor Durley, I would ask that you take the chair. Do you have a conflict, as noted? Thank you.
Moved by Councillor Papp, seconded by Councillor King. Be it resolved that council has received the report on education and development charge proposed for information, and that staff be directed to provide a letter to the Niagara Catholic District School Board that the town supports only an area-specific charge if the proposed education development charge is approved. Open for discussion. Councillor Papp.
So through you to the Director of Planning, explain that. So if a new Catholic school is proposed to be built in the next few years, what would happen?
I believe the report was written through the treasurer.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry, the
I'm
treasurer.
able to
Because
answer.
I didn't know who, so either one of you, just explain it to me.
Perhaps I can lead in, and the treasurer can follow up
Right.
if there's anything. There's two ways to assess education development charges. That's through an area-wide, which would be the region, or a site-specific or a town-specific area where the schools are being developed. In this case, the planning department as well as the treasurer are both in agreement that the application of the education development charge should be applied to those municipalities that are actually receiving the schools. We have had indication through the school board that there are no new schools coming to Pelham for the Catholic School Board. Thereby, there should be no educational development charges for our developers for the town of Pelham. They should be applied to where development is actually occurring.
I'm just curious because I had heard there was a plan for an expansion of an elementary school here, but if that's not on the books, and what you're basically saying, if it does occur or if it is being planned, then in effect, that development charge would occur to that particular site project, correct?
Go ahead.
Mr. Chair. The education development charge is to buy land in addition to a school. Wouldn't fall into that category. So they would charge the developers X amount of dollars to buy land for school, but not the building of the schools for the additions.
Good, that's clear.
Okay, and that would just be the Catholic board, it's not the public school board. That's the issue has come forward just from them, is that correct?
The EDC is from the Catholic School Board.
Okay, thank you. Other questions? Councilor Ribier?
Thank you, Councillor Durley. For clarification, if it was the public school board, would development charges for a school in another municipality fall onto us as well? Or is that also by area?
Okay, the development charges are a specific thing, Madam Treasurer?
There's two ways that you can do the EDC, the Education Development Charge. It's jurisdictional or it's area specific. They have chosen jurisdictional so that it is all the municipalities that will fund this Education Development Charge. What we're saying, what the region is saying, what the 12 municipalities, we all met on Friday of 2 weeks ago, that we prefer that it's an area specific charge so that those municipalities that are getting the new schools would be the ones paying for that charge.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a difference in handling between the two.
Yep.
Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Other questions? No. Okay, so what we're saying to them is we are not in favor of wide open development charge. We're in favor of you charging that only where the schools are going to be built, and that's the letter that we're going to be sending?
Yes, that's the letter proposed in the council direction. Also, I think it's of prudence to let the developers that we have on file know about this new development charge. Just came to the treasurers about 6 weeks ago, I think this came forward. So we're finding that it's not very public and that the developers should know that this charge is in fact going to be in place as of June 16th, if it's approved by the trustees on that evening.
Okay. Okay, thank you for that. Other questions or comments?
So, Mr. Chair, through Madam Treasurer, you're going to, with our approval, you'll forward it to every developer that's on file with us.
That's correct.
All right, along with the public notice that the Catholic School Board will be publishing as well.
Yes, and I believe that public notice has happened, a public
Right.
meeting has happened, but I know that there are some developers in town here that still are not aware of this.
I can tell you they're not. Okay, thank you.
Okay, that shows our openness and transparency.
That's right.
Other questions or comments? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed, if any? The motion carried. We can bring the mayor back in, please. Thank you. Seats still warm.
Thank you, Councillor. Thank you, Councillor Durley. The next item has been moved by Councillor Durley, seconded by Councillor King. Be it resolved that the issue summary report entitled 2015 debenture request be received for information. Questions or comments? There being none, I call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. The next item has been moved by Councillor King, seconded by Councillor Durley. Be it resolved, the council receive the issue summary report outlining the purchase option and cost-sharing agreement between the Town of Pelham and Fawn Hill Gardens, Inc., and that council hereby approves the proposed amendments and changes to the purchase option and cost-sharing agreement as outlined in the report, and that the mayor and clerk be under hereby authorized to endorse the amendment agreement. Questions, comments? Mr. CEO, just for clarity, does this agreement stand on its own and separate, or does it replace? It stands on its own, is that correct?
It simply amends the existing agreement that we have.
Okay. So this isn't the entire agreement, it amends it, and the agreement is much broader. I was trying to follow all the,
It cleans up things that were a reality when we first signed it and what are a reality today. And they're basically subtle wording changes to reflect some of the changes, but it's just an amendment to the existing cost sharing agreement.
okay.
And it allows council to proceed, especially when we're so close to seeing the start of primary servicing.
Okay, thank you. Any others? Any other questions? There being none, I'm going to call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. Thank you. Now we move to presentation consideration of bylaws. It has been moved by Councillor Ribbiak, second by Councillor Durley. Be it resolved that Council of the Town of Pelham, having given due consideration to the following bylaws, do now read a first, second, and third time and do pass the same, and that the mayor and clerk be and are hereby authorized to sign and seal the bylaws. There are 5. The first is bylaw 3619, being a bylaw to amend the procedure bylaw, which is 3427, as it governs the proceedings of the Town of Pelham Council, its committees, and conduct of its members, and the calling of meetings. The second, bylaw 3620, being a bylaw to authorize the mayor and clerk to enter into agreements with 3 establishments licensed by the Alcohol and Gaming Commission of Ontario that are situated within the Summerfest license area, those establishments being namely Zest Restaurant, the Cafe on Main and Wine Bar, and Gelato Village, for the purposes of attaining a special occasions permit for festival licensing during Summerfest to be held on Friday, July 17th and Saturday, July 18th, 2015, and to rescind bylaw 2501, 2014. The third being a bylaw 3621, being a bylaw to enact a new parkland dedication bylaw and to repeal bylaw 3682, which was from 2005. The next, bylaw 3622, being a bylaw to authorize the borrowing of the sum of $3,335,130, and upon the issuance of debentures for funding of capital roads and facilities projects and for funding of development charges used in the construction of roads, linear assets within the Town of Pelham. And finally, bylaw 3623, being a bylaw to dedicate certain roads described in Schedule A as public highways as part of Effingham Street. Discussion. There being none, I call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. We do have some in-camera topics, and as we generally do, we will recess them immediately following committee. So it has been moved by Councillor King, seconded by Councillor Ribbiak. Be it resolved that Council recess the in-camera portion of the meeting and reconvene immediately following the committee of the whole meeting scheduled for this evening. I'm going to call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. We will take a brief 3-minute recess. This meeting is recessed. Thank you.